This is so much fun. This is the April dripper, and I kind of just have two reasons why I love this dripper so much, and it's really become my daily driver. I've been drinking a ton more pour-over recently, and really the past few months have kind of just been pour-over only for me, and this is just really what I use day to day because it solves a lot of my frustrations with flat bottom drippers, as well as just the recipes that you use to brew coffee on this are so enjoyable. This is designed by April Coffee all the way in Copenhagen. I have some of their beautiful coffee here. This specific one is the green one. There is a blue one. I see the blue one. Rolf, if you're watching, let me buy one. But there is a 1.0 model of this that is made out of resin. So this one's made out of resin, and then there is a 2.0 model that's made out of polycarbonate, and it comes in blue, and I really want to buy that one. But it also comes in glass. I think they kickstarted this, but I picked this one up when it was on pre-order, and I've been having such a blast with it because it solves the one problem that I have with some of these flat bottom drippers, which is stalling or clogging at the very bottom. So basically, I've made a lot of pour over with flat bottom drippers, and they're really consistent, they're really easy to use, but there is nothing more frustrating than when you're pouring, you see the liquids go along the edges and they start to build up, and your brew stalls, and you just have a terrible day. That's basically what has happened to me on something like the Torch Mountain, the Stag X, the Kalina, so on and so forth. But this here solves that by just pushing up the filter just a little bit using these three little support structures on the bottom. That means that your paper filter doesn't fully stick to the bottom there and actually stall your brew. Instead, it is lifted up and your flow rate is really good. And your flow rate also is really good because there's a big hole here. That's why I like it so much, is that it solves that complaint that I have. You don't run into any of the problems that you do with these other flat bottoms, and for me, it's just way less frustrating and it's just so much more fun. Also, what's been really fun is I've just been using April's recipes for everything. I grind pretty coarse, I pour really fast, I don't have any blooms, and I use a pretty small dose. So I'm using 12 grams to 200, and I'm doing a 30-gram circle pour, 70-gram center pour in 10 seconds. Your kettle is at full tilt, and then at 35 seconds, you do the same thing again, and you end up with a really enjoyable brew. You can use so little coffee and get so much enjoyment. You're using 12 grams. Instead of making big boy 20-gram brews, I can use 12 grams in this. It's super fast. The brew time is 2 minutes basically, and you fully extract everything because you're using a really coarse grind size. You know, there's so many different theories on how to do pour over and different methodologies, but I've just been really enjoying these recipes of just relatively small dosage. So that means I can mess around with so many different more coffees each day. But it's just the actual process of doing the recipe, of doing this crazy fast pour is so fun. And the resulting brews to me are always really well balanced. I get really great body, really great sweetness, and really great acidity. So overall, a really great cup. What I will say is that if my specific goal is to get acidity out of my brew, I actually still go for something like a cone-shaped dripper. I find things like the V60, the Xiao dripper, things like that to give you a little bit more flexibility in pushing acidity, just simply because there's so many more cone-shaped filters around, whereas in these flat bottom land, you kind of only have Kalina, April, and some of these other filters. There are just more options to me to push acidity with cone-shaped drippers. Yeah, I love this dripper. Now let's go ahead and do a brew, and I'll kind of just show you what I do every day, my day-to-day brewing process with this. Now, I do want to note that there are a few different filters that you can use for this. I have the April filters. I kind of treat these like gold because they're really expensive, but you can of course use Kalina 155 and even 185. I personally prefer the April filters. These seem to let you grind actually really fine. They flow a little bit faster than the Kalinas. They also feel a little bit thinner here, so you can have a bit more flexibility of actually using a slightly finer grind and using a very fast pouring rate with this dripper and you can still hit the same exact time. For me, I think that helps me give a little bit more control, especially with certain coffees that I'm using. 12 grams is fine to me because I just make 2 pour overs instead of 1 pour over. So, 24 grams, 20 grams, it's fine for me. I use the stock paper filters for low dosages, I would say 14 grams and below, although apparently you can use them for bigger brews, but you have to really adjust your pouring technique. April does have a video on that. For me, when I'm brewing larger dosages, about 15 plus grams, I switch over to Kalina. I'm using an April coffee. There are many different ways to brew light roast coffees. I think this is so much fun when you just pour really, really fast. But yeah. We're just going to use the Lagom P64 with SSP multi-purpose stirrers in it. I think this dripper is so fun to use, mainly because we can actually do these low dosages, which means we can brew a lot more coffee each day, as well as the actual pouring technique is just so fun. So I just put 12 grams in there, and I'm just going to flatten the bed out here. And this is what's super fun. So this does take some practice and getting used to. I'm really used to doing things like phase pouring with something like a V60, right? Like multiple pours, 3 to 6 pours. And with this, you just do 2 pours and you pour really, really fast. And you kind of just let the water drain down and it's pretty straightforward. So I'm just gonna try to do this right now. So I'm 30-gram circle pouring. And then I just go full tilt basically. And I hit 100 right there in 10 seconds. That happens so fast. And it does get, you really got to get used to this pouring style, but that's what makes this so enjoyable. Then at 35 seconds, we do the exact same thing. And I also sometimes feel like this dripper is pretty flexible with the grind size, although you're supposed to use coarser grinds. But if you use the April filters, it does seem like you have a lot of flexibility in what grind size you can use, because these filters do seem to flow pretty fast. So there we go, 200, 204 here, pretty straightforward. But that's the thing, is I'm done. Now I can walk away, let this drain down. I don't have to do any sort of manual agitation or anything, although you probably could, but because you're pouring so fast, you're already agitating a ton and you're already extracting a ton. That's kind of my understanding of this dripper. So yeah, this total brew time should just basically be 2 minutes. It's already draining down. Look at that flow rate. Because we have these exposed sections here as well, you're not creating a vacuum within here, so the flow rate is pretty high here. And because you're using a relatively coarse grind size and you're pouring so fast, you're agitating everything, and you can use some of these light roast coffees. And really, I think this is so good for light roast, is to just bring a nice and balanced cup for all of this. But talking really fast, because this brew's going really fast, we're about 1 minute 50 seconds and it's all draining through. I think this is so fun. This is why I like this. 2 minutes to brew a really great cup of coffee, sign me up. And also, it's so fun to do that. So 2 minutes, there we go, we're done. And that's the thing right there, boom. And this is actually a really great amount of coffee if you want to share it with a ton of people. So I've actually been having a ton of people come over recently, and I've been able to just brew a variety of pour overs with this dripper. You end up with just a perfect amount of coffee to share with a bunch of people, especially when you are having a coffee session with your friends and you have all these different coffees you want to taste. This offers you such a really fast way to brew a really great cup that offers you great balance when it comes to acidity, sweetness, body, all of that in one cup. And it's just pretty easy to do. Although, again, I do think V60 and cone-shaped drippers are a little bit better if you are specifically pushing for acidity, as well as you just have a bit more control over what you can do because you can use many different filters in here. Whereas this, you kind of only have a few options on the market here. I just really like that the cups out of this dripper are so balanced. Really great acidity, really great body, really great finish. It's just very enjoyable to drink the cups out of here. And really, it's so easy to use, but it's fun. That's why I like it. And because it's plastic, you don't run into any weird problems of, oh, I hope I might drop it, I might break it, or I might, or the heat is gonna go out or something like that. It offers just a very frictionless experience. Everything is good. Great body, great acidity, great balance in the cup. great everything, right? Everything is good enough. And that's why I think for me in a daily driver situation where I'm looking for consistency, I'm looking for speed, I'm looking for fun, all of that, you get that. And I think a few of you will be in this situation, although I admit I am very privileged in the sense that if I just want to manipulate a certain property in cup, I really just pick a different coffee or I pick a different grinder. So for me in that sense, it's actually quite flexible. If you want more acidity, use a grinder that produces more acidity, right? But overall, the cups here are very, very balanced. I actually think these April recipes are very flexible across roast levels as well as grind sizes. You can get away with doing a lot of different things, but if you just follow the recipe, taste the coffee. I would rather have a very fun experience and 8 out of 10s in every category than like maybe a 10 out of 10, but like I have to put so much more effort, right, into something like a V60 if I want it to be just perfect. But with this, I think it's just good enough. And I think that's really why people like flat bottoms. But I think with this, it just solves so many of your frustrations that you might run into with flat bottoms. But it's just really, really fun to use. And the cups are fantastic out of this thing. But yeah, it's my daily driver, so that's why. Another thing I want to note is that you can actually updose if you use a different filter. So I do like the April filters, and there are techniques on how to do big boy doses with the April filters, and there's a video that they made on it. But I personally like to use these bigger Kalitas when I'm dosing higher, and it works completely fine. Other things that you can do is you can obviously adapt other recipes to this. You don't have to use April's recipes for it, but I like the April recipes because they're really fast and they're really, really fun to do. Wow. This is actually so good. Yeah, that's all I wanted to show off. That's the April dripper. Get one. You're gonna have so much fun with it. And April, Rolf, if you're watching, you have the blue one. Let me buy the blue one. I want the blue one. It's so pretty. But anyway, thank you so much for spending the time to watch today's video. I'll see you guys around.